All right, good evening, everyone. This is our February meeting of the Town of Spencer Board of Aldermen. And with that, I call the meeting to order. We have 4 of our board members present this evening. Mr. Muhammad is on his way. He'll be here momentarily, and we know that Mr. Miller is out of town. So he will not be with us tonight. Did we have a volunteer for the invocation?
Rashid.
Okay, very good.
And I forgot about that. Sorry. And he is.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and I'll offer that tonight, since he'll be with us here momentarily.
Okay.
Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the beautiful weather today. We thank you for the town of Spencer, for our staff, for our businesses, for our residents, and for the chance to work alongside these board members together. We ask that you guide us tonight, give us wisdom and discernment as we do the work of the town. Amen. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, board, you have before you your agenda for tonight. I do know of one addition that the manager has requested. He'll tell us about that in just a moment. Are there any other additions or suggested deletions to the agenda this evening?
I would have one recognition.
Okay. We will be sure to recognize Ms. Sledge for her recognition. And Mr. Franzese, what is the item that you wish to add to the agenda tonight?
Thank you, Mayor. The town has previously approved having a municipal agreement with NCDOT for our EB 5861 feasibility study. And what we would like for the board to do tonight is actually consider the budget ordinance in front of you so that we can, we're in the process of executing all that, and this would allow us to then get the funding put in our budget so we could proceed with the contractor on that work.
Okay, board, so you have that budget ordinance before you. Is there a preference on where you would like to place this on the agenda?
Is this something that can go on consent? We kind of know what this is, but
yes,
it could go on the consent if you so choose.
I would suggest we do that, but that's my suggestion.
Okay, there's a request by Mr. Howe to put this on the consent agenda.
Second.
You don't actually have to make a motion for it, but if everybody's in agreement, we can do that. Okay, all right, we'll add that then to the consent agenda. All right. Anything else?
though I could mention it a little more later, but we do have an update to items 8, 9, and 10. We have a recommended ordinance in front of you that we would like you to consider as part of those processes.
Okay, so there's a request from staff to add ordinances 24-004, 003, and 002 to the rezoning items 8, 9, and 10 in your agenda. So if those items are before you, you will just add those to your packet for when we get to those items.
And essentially, currently it says, with each item, it says A, zoning request, and B, statement of consistency. So the A part would simply be adopting the ordinance, the recommended ordinance.
Okay. All right. The next item is our recognitions. We'll give the floor to the Mayor Pro Tem for a few recognitions.
Good evening. I'm going to be recognizing some students in the North Row End schools. I'm going to start with our students of second quarter, Don Terrence Ambers from North Row End Elementary School. He was not able to be here tonight, but I'm going to read what his teacher wrote about him because I think it's worth sharing. Don Terrence has no idea that he is highly effective, immensely respected leader among his peers and held in the highest regard among his teachers. Perhaps a defining characteristic of leadership includes one's ability to quietly influence others. DJ is one who quietly exudes his self-discipline, self-control, and resilience for that others and strive to match. In the classroom, DJ is always helpful and is the epitome of character traits we hope all students will one day possess. He would give his last snack and has to a classmate just because they asked. So that doesn't happen very often in school. He works harder than anyone and never boasts of his accomplishments. He maintains a strong competitive spirit and the grit to achieve all he sets out to do. He is growing academically and his strong work ethic enables him to learn new things that even he may not have thought possible. He exhibits the highest integrity to make the right choices even if the teacher's back is turned. In a time of turbulence, he is steady, calm, and ready as a leader should be. Sounds like this child needs to be cloned. Academically, he makes his classmates better as well, both in and out of the classroom. He's the type of young man that will be a friend for life to those around him, and when his friends are in need, he'll be the first person they call. Not because of his strong giving heart which he has. They'll call him because he has intentions that are pure, his sincerity is real, and his friends know that his strength lies in his ability to tell the truth and simultaneously extend compassion. He's intelligent, he reads every situation, fights for what he believes in, and makes the best choices based on his conviction. DJ may not have saved the world yet. He is, however, one whom his peers look to for guidance. They take their cues from him, and he leads the symphony of his life with dignity, poise, and control, while creating music that is both beautiful and strong. He leads with no expectation of award or recognition. So I just thought that was a beautiful description of a wonderful man I have not yet met, but young man. So that's very encouraging. And then also I want to recognize Lucy Jones from North Rowan High School. And she's a freshman at North Rowan. Lucy is not just a good student, but a great young lady. She has done a good job working on her assignments and is focused on growing as a student. She has a willingness to help others if they are struggling with their work, and she always shows a friendly attitude and is encouraging to others. So that's why she was nominated. And then I wanted to recognize 3 student athletes very quickly. The first one that I was going to recognize is Ryland Furr, a member of the North End High School swim team, which is coached by Dana Jordan. As a freshman, Ryland was the only student on the swim team that qualified for the regionals held on Saturday in Greensboro on February the 3rd. He represented North Rowan High School very well in all the events he participated in, the butterfly and the breaststroke. So we're looking forward to seeing him continue on his path towards excellence in swimming. Also, some of you may not know that North Rowan still has a wrestling team, and not only do they have a male wrestling team, they have a female wrestling team. And Danielle Smith is the first female wrestler who qualified for the state wrestling tournament. So that was something to be proud of. And I've saved the strongest for last, Bailey Goodman. If you don't know about Bailey, you need to check the sports pages because she's breaking all kinds of records over at North End High School as a female basketball player. She's a team leader, a senior. She broke the North End record with 45 points, and she scored 40 in the first 2 quarters. And they were using a running clock. Now that tells you what a shooter she is. She hits 99% of her layups statistically. And her coach is Coach Dara Walker, and she has built a great team around Bailey and some other strong players. And they are actually playing tonight at Lexington. And she's probably going to go, well, she's already over 1,800 points. But she's probably going to reach 2,000 points, which is awesome, because they're going to go deep in the 1A finals this year. She is, the best thing is she stayed local and she signed with Catawba. So if you miss her while she's in high school, maybe you'll be able to go see her next year at Catawba. So wish Bailey a lot of luck and in her career, and keep praying that they keep doing as well as they do and everybody stays healthy. And finally, don't forget our big hometown hero, Javon Hargrove. I know all of you probably watched him on Sunday in the Super Bowl, and I know you saw how awesome he was. His picture's on the front page of the paper today when he was taking down the quarterback. So that's a great picture. I'm sure he'll probably have it framed. And they are having an event at Northland High School this Friday to honor Javon. And if you wish to go, you have to purchase tickets online fast because they're expecting a sellout crowd. So you can find that on Facebook, the information for it. So best of luck to him.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Ms. Sledge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to do a really quick recognition for our town clerk, Anna Ward, who is in Chapel Hill this week for the town clerk training program that they have. But today is the anniversary of her first year with us. And so we want to say thank you, Anna, and we're glad to have you with us, and study hard down there. Go Tar Heels.
That's right.
Time flies when you're having fun, right?
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. We'll move on now to our public comment section of the agenda. Mr. Blunt, would you mind grabbing the sign-in sheet for me? Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. All right, we have two individuals signed up for public comment this evening, and we will invite those in order which they signed up. And so we'll invite them forward. As a reminder, public comments limited to 3 minutes. There is a timer that will be up on the screens for you to kind of give you an idea as that time limit, as you reach that time limit. So if you will, please come to the front, Mr. Jason Greer. State your name again and address for the record.
My name is Jason Greer. I live at 755 Long Ferry Road. I come before the board tonight to ask that you delay the final decision on the rezoning at 970 Long Ferry Road from commercial 85 to light industrial. I have 4 reasons that I'm asking for this delay. Number 1, the public hearing sign. At one point, when the sign was on the property, it was laying face down. At another point, it was turned towards Interstate 85. At another point, it was turned again back towards Long Ferry Road. So it's not the biggest problem in the world, but it is a little odd that that sign has moved around. It may have affected people in the neighborhood understanding what was occurring on that property. Now, my second reason to ask for the delay is the speed of the rezoning process. We went from a neighborhood meeting to a public hearing to the planning commission last night and tonight for a final decision within 8 days. And this is very rapid for a rezoning. Now, I'm sure it complies with the legal obligations of the general statutes, but for us in the neighborhood, I think we found that to be very fast, and I don't think we had time to quite comprehend what was going on with the speed of this process. So that's just one of my complaints. Number 3, I was trying to link to the ordinance from the town's website, and it took me to an older version at the American Legal Publishing website. It was the outdated version of the ordinance. Now, I spoke with Mr. Blunt on Monday, and he showed me where to access the proper ordinance and the current ordinance, but you could see someone who's not internet savvy. This could cause quite a bit of confusion, because if you wanted to look at the use tables, the dimension standards, etc., you'd have 2 different sets of information. This can confuse anyone. I was slightly confused myself. That's why I spoke with Mr. Blunt. So he was very generous and showed me where to find the correct information. And another thing Mr. Blunt pointed out was that the property cards at the Rowan County site have incorrect zoning information. So that is not another reliable source of information for citizens to look at, to try to grasp what's going on, especially in the rezoning process. And my final point is that the Long Ferry industrial properties, I think they'll be quoted in the presentation that Mr. Blunt will give tonight, stated that they're going through with this process with the rezoning or without it. So the project is not in jeopardy in any manner. It's going to move forward on schedule. But I think those of us in the neighborhood who are going to be directly affected by this development should have a little extra time to sort of process and analyze the impacts that this is going to have on our community. This building is going to be right in our face. It's not very far set back off the road. So I think it would be an act of good faith by the town to grant us a delay, at least for a month, let us process, and if we have any more questions or concerns, maybe we can express those. All right. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thanks for your time. All right, next is Sharon Hovis.
Good evening, Mayor, board members.
Good evening.
I'll make this quick because I promised the town attorney I would. First thing he said to me is, "You gonna talk long?" So anyways, I want to say this. We have a jewel here. He has been that for a long, long time. I'm going to embarrass you. Joel Taylor is the best. He comes out on a Sunday and will work. You hear me? I mean, that man, we're not even paying you enough. You know that? We just aren't. So I got to say that to him. The next thing I'm going to bring to your attention, I emailed you guys reference to my family property easement. You know I will be here every time I feel like I'm not getting an answer back. When I emailed you, I didn't get an answer back. All I got back from the town manager was, "He'll get back with me." Well, I'm back here to find out why you hadn't gotten back with me. So I need to know what we're going to do about that easement. This is why I wanted it covered and filled, because I don't want to do this every year, keep coming back in front of something that my family property has allowed the town to be able to have, and that is water flow. And you've been keeping up with all the rain that's been happening here. That gully is getting deeper and wider. So if you could just do the things that I requested on that email, which was rip rock for you, Miss Moody. I didn't have your email. I would have sent it to you.
I received it.
Okay, all right. It's just little things. And the last thing, you guys are getting ready to come up on your retreat. I asked this for the board members. Don't forget about the people who've been here a long time. Don't forget about the community. Don't get so wrapped up in funding the staff and making sure the streets and all these different things, cars and trucks. Because every time I drive through town now, these new 50-foot lots are too busy tearing up our streets. You can't even come down the main road anymore now without hitting a pothole. So what's going on with the Powell bill? I mean, repave the roads. Last time I remember coming up in here about a year or two ago, you guys said you were going to one-way it out and put some kind of turnstile up there, all these wonderful things, paint the road, bike paths. None of these things have happened. And what's even worse, our little back Spencer roads are still looking like crap because these guys is building these houses in. They're tearing up to put plumbing down, and all you're getting is beat up asphalt now after the fact. Spencer roads are looking really bad. So I ask you guys to keep looking into the community and trying to help the community out. You're the community people. We voted for you. Make it at least happen for the people who've been here before, the rest of the other people who just got here, kind of thing. Look out for us too.
Thank you, Ms. Hovis. And we will ask town staff, they'll speak to some of those things during our public works update, if that works. Okay. All right. Those are all that are signed up this evening for public comment. And so we will move to our consent agenda. Or do you have those items plus the one additional item that you added for the budget ordinance 23-14.016? Is there anything that needs to be pulled from the consent agenda tonight for further discussion? And if not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
All right. There's a motion by Ms. Sledge, second by Mr. Muhammad. All in favor? Okay. All opposed? And that is approved unanimously. Next item is to consider approving the rezoning of 707 North Salisbury Avenue from RMST to VSR. Mr. Blunt.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Before I launch off into my PowerPoint presentation on this property, I'm trying to remind myself to tell you that we did have a neighborhood meeting on this project. The new property owner and the realtor showed up. Nobody else showed up, so there were no comments one way or the other on that project. It did go before the planning board last night. Planning board had some questions about the use, the VSR for a vehicle repair operation, and the impact on the surrounding properties, but they did vote unanimously to recommend approval to the board. So with that, we'll launch into this presentation. This is parcel 087-084 at 707 North Salisbury Avenue. The request is to rezone it from RMST to VSR. It is a very small parcel, quarter-acre parcel. As I mentioned, it's currently zoned RMST. It has one commercial structure built in the middle of the property that has been used for various things in the past. The last one I'm aware of was an installation contractor's office. There are some problems with the size of the building versus the size of the lot. The change to VSR won't resolve those problems, but it can continue to operate as a legal non-conforming use. This is the location of the site. It actually branches across the property from Salisbury Avenue to Long Ferry. There is an access point on each road into the building, as you'll see on some pictures coming up. The surrounding uses include commercial, retail, residential, and some undeveloped property. So it's not a problem of spot rezoning. This picture shows you very clearly that the building uses up almost all of the lot. You can't see it very clearly, but there's a lean-to building on the lower left-hand side of that picture going south towards town that comes almost to the property line. The northeast side of it goes almost to the property line. The front line of the property matches up with the road right-of-way, which is that yellow line, and no parking is allowed in the road right-of-way, so you'll have to park any outside cars basically perpendicular to the building. He's got enough space to park 3 or 4 cars at that point. This is the current zoning. The subject property is right in the middle, and again, you can see that there's a variety of zoning around this area of the intersection of Long Ferry and Salisbury Avenue. This is a picture showing the front from Salisbury Avenue. There is an industrial door in the front of the building to allow vehicle access. There's a personnel door that opens up into a small office area. At one time, that office area was converted to a bedroom and was used as somewhat as a residential structure. That's probably why it got zoned RMST during the rezoning process. Let me back up. That other view is from Long Ferry Road, looking straight up from the road. As you can see, it's not in very good repair. The yard has grown up, trees have grown up on the building. It's been out of use for many years and is not likely to be used unless this project moves forward. I took these pictures off of Google Maps to show you the impact that this property has on the view from Long Ferry Road, which is becoming a major entrance into our town over the next years. The first one is looking towards town on Long Ferry Road. You can barely see the building because of the tree. You can see some fencing that's fallen down that needs to be repaired. The other picture is looking from town going out Long Ferry Road. That building in the center is not the subject building. That's an apartment building just the side of the subject building. There are continuing code violation problems with outside trash and actually a lawnmower repair business being operated out of one of those rental units. This is a little closer look. I wanted to impress upon you that there is really no room to park vehicles outside. When I talked to the prospective property owner about that, he says that's not a problem with this type of operation. Vehicles come in, they drive in, pull into a bay. He does repairs on them inside, and then they pick them up and drive them away. If he needs parts or if somebody's late picking it up, there may be 1 or 2 cars parked, but no junk cars will be stored on the site. In your package, you will have a copy of the table of uses that shows you the uses allowed in the 2 classifications. Since this is a straight rezoning, it's good that you see all the uses that are available to each of the classifications at this point. But I won't try to read them all to you. The next couple of slides really slip away from the issue of rezoning this particular property and more to the coming importance of this intersection. As you're aware, the Long Ferry Road corridor study that we completed not too long ago showed the increase in traffic on Long Ferry over the next decade, going from something in the 5,000 cars per day measurement to 25,000 cars per day. Most of that fueled by the new commercial industrial development on Longs Ferry. But this will become one of the major entrances into our town, and that in itself will make this intersection a more critical intersection than it even is today. This is a map you've seen in the past, but it shows basically the traffic flows in and out of Spencer, and again, the 5,100 traffic movements per day is predicted to increase to over 25,000 in the next decade. The next highest of that would be in and out of Salisbury, currently at 7,100 per day. I did this map not long ago when I was trying to rationalize in my mind the 3-mile distance from downtown to our River Park development that we've been working on. And being an old fat man, thinking about a 3-mile walk from downtown out to the park, it's a little humbling, not something I would probably ever do. But as I thought about how people perceive a community, that's how we're perceived today, even by ourselves. The center circle is around the downtown area where we sit tonight, and then our thoughts of development sort of go out in concentric circles, reaching as far as they can out to the river. But if you shift that center just a little bit, shift it to the Long Ferry Road intersection, then the perspective of our town starts to make a little better sense. It becomes a 1.5-mile walk from the city center, which would be Longs Ferry Road, out to the river or back into town, and maybe a 1-mile walk out to all the industrial development we're seeing now and all the residential development we hope to see on the northwest side. So just that shift of the concept of the center gives you a new perspective. Downtown Spencer will always be Spencer. The Transportation Museum, the old buildings, the restaurants, the shops, this will always remain the cultural center, the entertainment center of our town, but the commercial center may start shifting towards that intersection. And I tell you all that based with the idea, I'll tell you one more thing, the bridge over the railroad tracks at Longs Ferry Road, the grade separation as they call it, is in the works with NCDOT. We've been told that it's scoring well this round, and that may move up on the time frame as far as when that's going to be accomplished. So at some point, not only will we have a bridge across the railroad tracks at Longs Ferry, at that point they will improve the intersection, square it up, put in turn lanes, and probably signalize that based on the 25,000 traffic movements a day. So I can't tell you it's going to exactly look like that because they hadn't picked a route yet. They've just got a vague line on the map that's subject to change hundreds of feet north or south from where they show it on the map. But that gives you an idea of how much improved that intersection will be and how that will impact, again, how this area transitions. That makes cleaning up the site important to the town. And more than the need for another garage or car repair station, cleaning up the area visibly is critical to the town to make that new center, that new commercial center, evolve as we try to improve the Salisbury Avenue US 29 corridor into something that becomes an economic development success story for this town. So again, you see the schedule that we've done, the advertising, the public hearings, the neighborhood meeting, planning board last night, and we bring it to you tonight. And I'll comment on the pace of these things when we get to the other one, but you can see this one's on the fast pace also. So what we brought to you tonight is that suggested rezoning of that property from RMST to BSR. And I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Blunt. Board, are there questions? I'm gonna ask the one that Mr. Howell, I figured you were gonna ask. What assurances do we have that, this property is not gonna become like the, property we're dealing with down the street?
Well, I figured you'd ask that question. I knew there would be some reluctance on the board's part and on the planning board's part based on the history of that project. Based on the history of this project, not based on the history of any particular project, but just on one that this board or a previous board granted a conditional use permit to a person who had started a business in a building that was not zoned properly. You did him a favor and that favor wasn't returned. But to answer your question very simply, I can't give you any guarantees. This is a straight rezoning to VSR. There are limitations in the ordinance on how that property can be used, requiring buffering on either side to protect the neighboring properties. But it is a straight rezoning without conditions, and like any business that opens in this town, what you have to trust is that an owner-operator of a business, it is in their greatest benefit to keep their buildings up, to operate them well, and without doing that, the business will fail. So I'm not going to stand here and promise you that this building overnight is going to become beautiful. But I have met with the gentleman twice that plans to run this business, and he seems like a good guy. Seems like he wants to do a good job. And that's as far as I'm going to go with it.
I think, the one thing that the board probably wants is knowing that, cleaning the property up, I think that's great, but knowing that it's not going to become more of a nuisance when it's in operation than it is right now, because we've been down that road.
Well, and the only option you would have is to follow that same road that you followed and try to put conditions on this, and you see how well that worked out.
It's not a fun road.
My advice to you as your planner will always be avoid conditional use permits as often as you can, because while it allows an extra layer of regulation, it also requires an extra layer of enforcement. And we lack on enforcement. We don't have an enforcement officer right now. So my advice to you is if you are against it because you have concerns, vote no on the rezoning. Don't ask for conditions. If you want to trust a small businessman in your town to do the best he can to run a business and make it benefit the town, then vote yes.
Ms. Sledge.
Mr. Blunt, you mentioned buffering, but you also mentioned that the building on that property comes very close to the property lines.
It does.
Will there be room for buffering, or will there be buffering required?
The ordinance requires a type B buffer, which if it's built out of vegetation is 30 feet wide. So obviously you can't put 30-foot wide buffer. What we will require is a 6-foot privacy fence to be built down both sides of the property.
On both sides?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll say, and I was thinking the question, you beat me to it in a way. Those are different issues, but we have someone who's willing to invest time, energy, money in Spencer, and I'm not the best historian when it comes to that kind of the area of town, but I don't recall anything being in that building for quite some time. And in my view, there's nothing worse than vacant buildings, because any host of things that we don't want happen in vacant buildings. So, I think we trust staff. I think we give this gentleman a chance, and hope that it pays off. And I support this. I think we need to get down this road.
Other questions or comments from the board?
Well, and on the corner there of Charles Street and Salisbury Avenue, there is a tire dealership there, a tires. So it's not like we're putting it right in the middle of.
And if you'll think about it, there used to be a poorly run convenience store that looked like a flea market, and we used code enforcement to clean it up, and that guy decided he didn't want to pursue that. That building became Mustafa's,
That's right.
which is a fine addition to our community. So what I'm involved in is land use. And we don't go very far into business operation. I try to stay away from it as much as I can. Market forces drive business operation. We determine where things should and shouldn't go, and that's about it.
You have to understand our gun shyness.
Certainly
over
do.
it, though.
Certainly do.
Any other questions, board? Hearing none, is there a motion one way or the other to move forward with this?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the staff's recommendation as presented to rezone parcel 038084 located at 707 North Salisbury Avenue from RMST to VSR zoning classification.
All right, so
And if you would add
there's
to
a
that
motion,
and
go
adopt
add the ordinance 24-004 to that.
Yes.
Okay, all right, just making sure you're good with that.
Do
All
we
right,
need to
board.
read the statement of
We'll
consistency?
Not
do
yet.
that as a separate.
We'll do that
Okay.
as a separate,
Okay.
yeah. All right, so there's a motion by Ms. Sledge to approve, and there's a second by Mr. Howe. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved unanimously. And now we'll take a motion for the statement of consistency and reasonableness.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt a statement of consistency and reasonableness stating that we find that this rezoning is consistent in general with the town's comprehensive land use plan per requirements of North Carolina General Statutes 160D-605A. Said plan stating specifically about this area. Section 6 amendments, item 5F, confirm zoning classifications for potential business sites are correct. Rezone is needed, end quote. Also, Development Policy 1 that states the town should encourage new and expanding industries and businesses which diversify the local economy, increase residents' job opportunities, and expand the town's tax base. We further find that this rezoning to be reasonable in all ways as prescribed by the North Carolina General Statutes 160D, 605B. This rezoning will be beneficial to the citizens of the town of Spencer.
All right, there is a motion by Ms. Sledge. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Moody. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is also approved unanimously. Thank you all. All right, next item on the agenda is related to rezoning of the property at 970 Long Ferry Road from C85 to the industrial zoning classification. Mr. Blunt.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, this rezoning was requested by the property owner for, get my presentation up there, I'm sure he's working on it. This project has actually been in the works for at least a year and a half. Property has gone through our complete planning process, staff review, engineering drawings review, site plan review. They have been approved all the way. They have been willing to do things that they want to do, but really the approval process started years before that when this property was zoned C85. And the rest of the property surrounding this area going north was zoned industrial. The town at that time decided that this is where they thought this type of growth should go, along this corridor, Longs Ferry Road corridor, and points north. When I got here, we revised your comprehensive plan two years ago. During that process, we again recognized that this area was primed for industrial and commercial growth. And we also pointed out in that comprehensive plan review that one of the goals we needed to look at was to rezone properties as needed to encourage this type of growth. So this process has been going on a long time. As far as the comments earlier about this being rushed, as he pointed out, we have met all the statutory requirements as far as when things have happened. But if you flip the table over and ask the applicant if it's been rushed. They want to know why it's taking so long. The reasoning for this rezoning is that the developer who plans to lease this building has had numerous inquiries about the building for industrial uses. And the zoning classification right now in C85 does not allow those industrial uses. It does allow a distribution warehouse. And this is proposed to be a 350,000 square foot distribution warehouse. And I'll show you some pictures of that later on. I'll also point out to you as we go that the light industries, the assembly of parts to ship to another place, light industrial fabrication, will likely have the same or less impacts on the surrounding properties than a distribution center that's going to probably be running 24 hours a day with tractor trailers running in and out all the time. So in our opinion, staff feels that this is not a major change, and that's why we are supporting this. I'll run you through these slides. Again, some of it I've already stated, 350,000 square foot building that they're proposing to build on a 35-acre lot. It's currently zoned C85, which allows the distribution warehouses, but does not allow the light industrial uses that the property owner is interested in. The property was annexed into the Spencer municipal limits in December 2022. We did have public hearings about this project at that time. All the preliminary site plan, engineering drawings, permitting, etc., has been completed, and the project is slated for the groundbreaking in the near future. And I've already told you why he wants to get it rezoned. The real important part of this is that last sentence, that the developer plans to construct a building, which I'll show you a site plan and elevation on shortly. He plans to construct that building regardless of whether it's used for a distribution warehouse or light industry. So what you see is going to get built that way regardless of the rezoning. One mistake in what was commented on earlier, it's not that the project's going to go ahead regardless of the zoning. He wants to get the industrial zoning so he can find more potential tenants. If he doesn't find a potential tenant, he's not going to build the building. So the rezoning actually helps this project move forward. This is where the site is located, north of Longs Ferry Road, about halfway between 95 and the railroad tracks. Just for focus, that's the truck stop site on the south side of Long Ferry Road. These are other sites that are being looked at by developers for use as either distribution centers or light industrial uses, including existing industry of Innospec, which is just to the east of this property. They're adjacent to Innospec's property. This is the current zoning map showing the C85 in red and industrial in the purplish color. And that's the piece of property where it fits. And I'll bounce back and forth and show you that what we're basically doing is sliding the line that allows industrial one lot to the west from where it is today. This is the site plan of the proposed building that will be built on that site, regardless of whether it's industrial or distribution. And that's what it will look like. A very attractive building, lots of landscaping that we've worked out through the engineered drawing process. We have landscaping drawings in hand at this point. So a very attractive building, an asset for our community. As I told you before, the table of uses will show you what is allowed under the proposed zoning versus what's allowed under the current classification. I won't try to read you all those, but I try to give them to you. This one I was just curious. I did a quick count. There are 83 uses allowed in C85 that are not allowed in IND. There's 62 uses that are allowed in IND but not allowed in C85. So they're really losing 20-some uses by doing this rezoning. And as I mentioned, a lot of uses are similar. There's 78 uses that are allowed in both. So there's a lot of duplication in these two zoning classifications. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Blunt. Board, are there questions?
How far is the building from the Long Ferry Road? How much space is there between, roughly?
Let me think if I can answer that off the top of my head. I'm locked up for some reason.
Well, my understanding, an industrial actually requires a larger setback.
There's an 80-foot setback, but I can't remember what C-85 requires. So
I think it's less because the intent, so it's kind of a history
we've
lesson.
got the developer right here. He can tell you right off the top of his head.
Sure. So with our 70-foot setback, we've already. So before we pursued this rezoning, we consulted with our civil engineers to make sure our development plan that we do not plan to change because we've already invested heavily in its design would still fit within the setbacks of I&D, which it does. So 70 feet. That double row of parking is another 70 feet. And so we're really talking about at least 140 feet off of the road. And I don't know the exact off the top of my head, but it would be at least that.
But that's what you would see if you really a lot of grass before you get to the paving, and then a lot of paving before you get to the building.
That's coming from the exit at your back, and that's multiple hundreds of feet on that southeast corner.
So, board, I guess a little bit of background on, having sat on the planning board several years ago, as it was explained to me, previous comprehensive plan that we had done years ago identified the Long Ferry Road corridor as a prime location for commercial, retail space, that sort of thing. However, our economy and our world has changed. At that time, things like Amazon and online orders weren't around or as heavily prevalent as they are now, and so that drive for retail has been overtaken with the drive for things like distribution and centers where manufacturing can happen. And so that's why we're seeing this kind of change in desires for these type of areas right off of the interstate. It's a convenient location for transportation and those sorts of things. So from a shipping and logistics standpoint, from a manufacturing standpoint to supply other facilities in the region, this is an attractive location. Something I want to point out, just as I've kind of watched this unfold, the fact that the request to rezone this to industrial opens up a world of potential. And I think that scares some of the residents on Long Ferry Road, because when they hear industrial, they're thinking smokestacks and large waste lagoons and things like that. But what you've heard is this is the facility, whether it's industrial or whether it's distribution. What this allows is the potential for a light manufacturing facility. And I think we need to be very aware of where we are geographically with this type of use. And that is because the Toyota megasite, the Greensboro Randolph megasite, Toyota battery manufacturing company, located about 48 miles away from here. They have a 45-mile exclusion zone. Mm-hmm. What that means is they want all of their suppliers close by, but not too close to compete with their workforce. In Spencer, right on I-85, we are positioned to be able to reap the benefits of that, because what that means is suppliers, manufacturers of the equipment that would then go to that facility are looking to places like Spencer to set up their shop. What that means, higher paying jobs over distribution. And so if you have to pick growth, whether you're picking light industrial or you're picking distribution, personally, I would pick light industrial, light manufacturing every single day, because it's jobs for our community and it's higher paying jobs than distribution. The reality is Chewy's been a great addition to our community, But what that has been is typically a second family job. It's been a job that supplements the primary earner in their family, like manufacturing, what we see. So you take places like Freightliner and places like that. Those are primary jobs for a lot of families. They're providing a good quality salary and a good quality of life. And so to be able to open up the possibility of landing one of those, I think is in the best interest of our town. That's just a personal opinion.
And I'll add to that, because I mean, wow, you must have pulled out of my head or something. Prior to my current iteration as an attorney, I was a business immigration attorney in Charlotte, and almost all of the people I work with, we were bringing people from Western Europe and Australia and all those places to go down to South Carolina because all the German and European companies they were tertiary and secondary suppliers to BMW. And not only did they bring good jobs and high-paying jobs, but they brought know-how from Germany and from Austria and from Italy over, and they were training U.S. workers how to do all those things that we don't know how to do. So not only the high wages, not only the better jobs, but they're going to be bringing know-how. If these people come in and they're hooked up with Toyota, they're going to bring people from Japan. We're bringing people from Asia or Europe to come teach our workers how to do things that we don't have to do. So yes, absolutely, wholeheartedly agree. In light industry is where we need to be rather than commercial. Nothing against commercial, nothing against distribution, but it's a better deal, I think. Yeah.
The other thing to consider is, job creation, especially higher paying jobs. I mean, that's like the counties recently changed their incentive policy. Mm-hmm. And they've changed their incentive policies because there has been so much interest in Rowan County. We're now finally in the northern part of the county starting to see that interest, and we're thrilled about it. But they've changed their policy now so that their policy is really focusing on those businesses that are going to create jobs and that are going to create higher paying jobs for folks. So anything that we can do that's kind of in step with that philosophy, I think is important. The other thing I want to say is I understand the comments that we've heard from those folks that live on Long Ferry Road. I understand the concerns about things like traffic and those sorts of things. There are projects in the work that's going to improve that, but it's a chicken and the egg thing. DOT won't do any type of upgrades until they see the development occurring and happening. The other thing too is for almost 20 years, we've had it in a plan that this area would one day be reshaped. It was planned for it to be reshaped as a commercial area, hence the C85 zoning. And I think the vision was something similar to what's happening. But I almost think people never really thought it would happen, and it's happening. And now we're forced with the tough decisions to, how we make that happen and how we do it so that it's least impactful to everybody, but also benefits the overall town and promotes growth and promotes economic development. So just want to add that this is not new. This plan's been decades old. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Blunt?
I will add, I should hire you guys to make my presentation for me because you did a great job there. But there's something called the clustering effect. And again, I'm locked up, but you remember the slide that showed all the properties around this that are being considered for development. That one right there. If you'll think about Jake Alexander Boulevard and a car dealership being built there 15, 20 years ago, and then in your mind count up how many car dealerships there are out there now. That's clustering, textbook clustering. This would be the first car dealership built, and we've got something over 300 acres more behind that. That when somebody drives down Long Ferry Road and sees that building, sees the location, sees the access to I-85, sees the available utilities and workforce, they're going to say, I sure would like to build a building in Spencer that looks like that. And we've got, this is built on 32 acres. We've got 300 and some acres left to build on. So this is a great first step for Spencer.
It's for a mega site. Almost.
If you put it all together, it still wouldn't be a mega site.
No, I know. That's 1,000 acres.
A mini site.
Yeah.
All right. Board, hearing no other questions or comments, is there a motion to move forward with this?
I move to approve the staff's recommendation as presented to rezone parcel 051-035 located at 970 Long Ferry Road from C85 to IND zoning classification.
Second.
There is a motion by Ms. Sledge and a second by Mr. Muhammad. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All right, all opposed? That is approved unanimously.
The ordinance needs to be adopted.
And the ordinance as well, yep.
Sorry.
It's okay, we'll make a separate motion for that.
I make a motion to adopt the statement of consistency and reasonableness stating that we find this rezoning and consistent in general with the town's comprehensive land use plan per requirements of the NCGS 160D-605. A said plan stating specifically about this area, section 6 amendments, item 5F, confirmed zoning classifications, potential business site are correct, rezone as needed. Also, development policy 1 that states the town should encourage new and expanding industries and business which diversify the local economy, increase residents, job opportunities, and to expand the town's tax base.
All right, so there's a motion by Mr. Muhammad for the statement of consistency and reasonableness. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Sledge. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, all opposed? That is
Mr.
approved
Mayor.
unanimously.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the ordinance 24-003 to amend the town's official zoning map dated April 12, 2021, rezoning Rowan County GIS system parcel number 051-032 located at 970 Long Ferry Road from C85 to IND zoning classification.
All right, there's a motion by Ms. Sledge for the ordinance and a second by Mr. Muhammad. All in favor? All right, all opposed? That is approved unanimously as well. Thank you all. Mr. Blunt, I do want to ask 2 questions. I know based on the comments that we heard tonight during public comment regarding the sign and being turned different ways and down on the ground, and then also about our code of ordinances that's online. I know I've noticed that as well. So you can just speak to that. Those are obviously.
I'm glad to. The code of ordinances first. The correct code of ordinance is on the site, and I showed it to him. He readily admitted he just didn't find it when he looked at it. So the current ordinance is on site, on our website. We keep a list of amendments, and when you're looking up an ordinance or something on the zoning map, you have to look at the list of amendments first to make sure it hadn't been amended in the last year. The code of ordinances, where the old development ordinance is located, is currently being codified. It's going through the codification process. Don't think we know a date on when that'll be finished, but we've heard some updates on how that's going. A part of that process will be to remove that section that was replaced by the development ordinance, the zoning and subdivision. Until that time, we can't go in and pull a piece of it out. If we took it out, we'd have to take the whole code of ordinances out of the website. So for right now, into the hopefully close future, people do have access to 2 different ordinances, which can cause some confusion.
So does American Legal Publishing have a way to indicate that those areas have been replaced or something? Obviously, I've gone and it's confusing too. To try and avoid that confusion for people that are going to the AML site.
Excuse me, we will check again. We know that previously we've asked about it. There's been a cost to removing. So we're trying to accomplish everything together. I know one thing we could definitely do is make an adjustment on our page. The way it currently reads, it lists in one spot the link to the American Legal, and then it references below that the development ordinance is also available. We need to add a link there so that that's clear, and we'll add another note that says, please, do not refer to these chapters within the link zoning. So we'll make those adjustments immediately. But we can check where we are in terms of any kind of interim updates within the published code.
And as far as the reference to the GIS zoning classifications being incorrect, if you go to the GIS map and turn on the layer for zoning, it will give you the correct zoning classification. If you go to the summary card in the written portion of the GIS, that is a summary that is accumulated by the tax office for Rowan County, and they have not kept up with updates of zoning, so they're using 10-year-old zoning classifications. So again, another layer of confusion. I will tell you that they are working to remedy that. They had contacted me, I think, last week asking for a list of our new zoning classifications and a definition so they could include that on their website. So the problems have been identified. We're working to solve them. Don't have an exact time frame for you, but it's going to happen as quickly as we can make it happen.
What about the sign issue?
The sign, we put them up. A few of them, knowing that we had storms coming, I actually tied them to a post behind where I stuck the stakes in the ground, including this one. The storms came, I went out and found it down, put it back up. The third time it fell down, somebody else must have put it back up and just stuck it in whichever way they thought was proper. On this particular one, I did mention that we did have a neighborhood meeting, and we did have people show up at the neighborhood meeting. Ms. Driscoll was there, and she fussed at us and said she doesn't want anything built out there. At the public hearing last night, you heard from two people. So the message was there, and it was getting out, whether it was the newspaper, the sign, word of mouth. People were hearing that we were having those meetings. The planning board did review it last night. On this one, they voted unanimously to approve.
And one other note about the signs is Mr. Blunt is looking at getting actually some new signs to replace the ones we're currently using that are going to be a little more user friendly and a little more durable. So that is also in the works.
Right. It used to be that everybody read the newspaper religiously every week, and they would look at these notices because it made a difference in their community. Readership has gone way, way down, and the number of people that actually look in the legal ads has gone down further than that. So on the Hawkins Meadows, when we had our meetings for the rezoning, I actually collected about 20 email addresses of the people that showed up at those hearings, and now I notify them religiously of any meetings we have on that project by email. So they're getting another layer of notification. I wish we had email addresses for everybody. That would be great. Maybe we can solve that problem in the future.
I just appreciate that we're working through some of those issues, recognizing that we can't create confusion. So thank you. And I will say, every ad we put out and every sign we post has my name and number on it. So all they got to do is call. This gentleman was kind enough to come in and ask questions, and I was able to answer them for him. So if the citizens would take advantage of that, we're always willing to help them find the answers they need. Thank you. All right, board, the next item is to consider a rezoning of parcel 047011 located at 1840 US Highway 29 from IND to MU2 zoning classification. This is ordinance 24-002. Mr. Blunt.
Mayor, members of the board, this is a rezoning of a property that I've always called the Coyote Yoga property. It's got a new name now. I'll run you through this presentation. I understand it was a very popular oyster shack or
It was
oyster
a chicken
bar.
shack.
Chicken shack.
The original chicken shack.
The history of it may be coming around. Let's hope. So this request is to go from the IND zoning to MU2 for parcel 047011 at 1840 North US Highway 29. It's a 1.7 acre parcel. It actually is about 80 feet wide and very, very long, stretches out along the railroad tracks and US Highway 29. There are 3 existing structures on that property, one commercial structure in the middle that most people see. There are also 2 small residential structures down on the north side, hidden back behind the trees. As you're probably aware, even though it's zoned industrial, a previous board granted them a conditional use permit so that they could use this facility as a bar/nightclub type of place. If you reject this rezoning request, it can still continue as that use because that conditional use permit is theirs to use as they need. It travels with the property, not the owner. Much of the property is encumbered by the railroad right-of-way, the road right-of-way, and as I'll show you on the slide coming up after this one, the setback requirement for IND zone properties. IND zone properties require an 80-foot setback from the property line. This property is barely 80 feet wide to the railroad tracks. So basically, they are legal non-conforming use because they've been there for a long, long time, but they can't build anything on them, they can't add anything on them, they can't repair the building if it's torn up by a storm. The MU2 zoning classification has a 16-foot setback, forming because it will be behind the setback. Also would allow him to do some expansion and cleaning up and fixing up of that building, and makes the two residential units conforming. Right now, they're not allowed in industrial at all, but this zoning classification will allow those to exist. And my clicker is stuck again for some reason. Bad night for clickers. There it is. There's the property, and on that one, you can see the black line is the 80-foot setback from the front property line. And that one goes almost back to the railroad for the whole property. And the 16-foot setback for MU2 is the red line that would show crossing in front of the property, or in front of the building. So it would allow it to be used. This is where it's located. These are the surrounding uses: residential, commercial, a solar farm, some industrial property that we've been talking about tonight being developed in the future on the east side, on the other side of the railroad tracks. This is our current zoning map, again showing that all that property out there was zoned industrial. Just as the mayor pointed out, that was a vision that the town had some time ago, and at the time there was very little going on out there. So it was pretty easy to paint with a broad stroke and say this is going to be industrial. We want to hold it up for industrial. But those small tracts along the Salisbury Avenue, and US Highway 29 are too small to be developed for industrial. They don't meet the setback requirements for industrial. They don't meet the size requirements for industrial. So basically what we've said with this purple paint is you can't develop your property. It cannot be developed under this zoning classification. And so last year, I think in June or July, I came to you with this map showing some proposed rezoning of all of the properties in that corridor. And the one that I show there as a subject property is the one we're talking about tonight. At that time, I was trying to get anything that was in commercial use, zone C29. The MU2 classification is a similar commercial use, but also allows the residential to continue on the north end of that property. So it better fits what he's doing on that property at this time. This is the visual of it. The upper left hand is a picture of the residential structures, which you really can't see because they're hidden behind the trees. I've noticed some renovation work going on with those, so they are being improved for use as residential. The upper right-hand picture is the actual commercial structure being used as a bar/nightclub. The lower picture is looking from town, looking north, the undeveloped part of the property and the parking lot for the existing structure. This first slide is not really so you can figure out what's allowed and what's not allowed, but I realized that I had failed to point out to you that our table of uses are set up so that uses with little impact, less impact, are to the left of that chart, and it's mostly residential. Uses to the far right are more intrusive, more impactful on surrounding property. The one to the far right is heavy industry. So anytime we show you these, if it's to the far right that we're suggesting, then it's a high impact use. If it's to the far left, it's a low impact use. And then you'll see that these are in the right-hand side of the table. The industrial that is currently zoned is more impactful than the requested MU2 zoning, which is more close to the middle, closer to the left. And then again, I go through all the ones that we have. This is the one that's important to him because he wants to actually transition that property from a bar slash nightclub into a restaurant. And he needs the MU2 zoning to do that. So maybe it'll be that chicken shack again someday. We can be proud to have it out there. I'm not sure we're going to go out there and dance at the nightclub, but we'll go out and eat some chicken. I know you guys. That was the letter that went along with that presentation, suggesting that we rezone all of these properties. Again, I suggested C29 just sort of as a blanket suggestion, but the MU2 would be just as acceptable to me. And then again, we're back to a schedule of things happening, the advertisement, neighborhood meeting, public hearing, planning board, and now to you. And I will remember to tell you that at the neighborhood meeting, the property owner showed up, but nobody else did. And then at the public hearing, nobody showed up. Trying to make sure I'm right before I tell you something. At the planning board level, there was a great deal of discussion about this one and the previous one that you approved, the 707 Salisbury Avenue. Again, from a point of what's going on out there. What's the use going to be? What's the impact on the corridor? And I tried to impress upon them, and I'll do the same with you, that our current vision of that corridor stretching from downtown Spencer all the way to the river is mixed use, mixed use. We want to see residential mixed in with commercial, mixed in with industrial, mixed in with service, mixed in with office, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We want all of those mixtures to be out there. So the fact that this particular site is a mix of uses is actually a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's not something to be feared. It's something we're trying to encourage in the whole corridor. In this case, it happens to be on one property. Now, if he ever came to me and said he wants to sell the houses to somebody, I'd tell him he has to subdivide. So he can't sell the houses and put it in somebody else's ownership. Same thing with property to the north. If he wanted to use that for some totally distant use and some other ownership, he would have to subdivide it before he sold the property. But this gives a young man, an entrepreneur, a chance to do something on that piece of property, to improve the looks of the property, to open up the uses to things that we want to be in that corridor in the future, and the future is now. I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Blunt. Questions from the board?
Do you know if the houses on that property are currently occupied?
I do not, and that was asked last night also. I know that on one of my many trips out that way, I saw workers coming in and out of the front door, taking in lumber and things of that nature, so I assume they're being renovated. They are small, but they're habitable, and they will be subject to code enforcement issues if we have problems with them as a residential structure.
At one time, the people who were there had a dog that was chained to a tree in that yard, and it was there almost always. And just wondered if it looks to me like the house is not occupied now. I think it's boarded
up. The one
up.
in front, I don't think is. The one behind it, I'm not sure.
Okay.
And luckily, I don't have to enforce animal control, so.
Right.
But I will pass that on if I see enough.
So currently, outside of the conditional zoning, we have, from a regulatory perspective, removed any possible conceivable use of this property.
Because of the conditional use permit, and because he's been in operation a long time, even without the conditional use permit, the building could be continued to be used. Conditional use permit allows him to use it as a bar slash nightclub. But if they abandon that building for any length of time, there's a certain number of days listed in our ordinance, they could not reopen it. And if it's damaged, they had a fire or something, they could not rebuild it. So we've taken that 1.7 acre parcel, and because of the setbacks that are imposed by the industrial classification, basically said, I'm sorry, you can't build on this property. And looking at this one and a couple others that we've seen in that corridor, there are some nice pieces of land north of this. You see it this time of year because the leaves are off the tree. And when you ride by them and you're thinking there's a railroad track right there, so they can't ever build on that lot, yeah, they could. There's some really nice property north of this, but it's all zoned industrial and they can't build with that 80-foot setback.
So board, keep in mind, we've got this vision of the area near the river, an old finishing company site on the west side of 29, redeveloping that to a kind of a mixed-use residential, commercial area that complements then the industrial. Folks that are going to be working there are going to need housing, and then they're also going to need places to spend their money, to eat, and to be entertained and those sorts of things. And so, so we think about redeveloping that area. Keep in mind also, that's the gateway to Spencer from across the river. And so you're going to want a mix of uses, especially commercial uses, whether that be restaurant or retail, along that corridor that's going to really kind of serve that area of northern Spencer. And so you're looking at a property that's basically it's landlocked between 29 and between the railroad, and we, in our infinite wisdom years ago, locked that into basically being an unusable area. We have an opportunity now to repurpose that and make it developable and make it usable to support what we're looking to do out of the river.
And we did just last month make the property next to it available for that lady who came and spoke to us about.
She wanted to build a consignment shop or use a building for a consignment shop. She could not under current zoning.
Right.
She requested C29 because that fit her use.
Right.
So we're heading in the right direction.
Right.
Board, any other questions for Mr. Blunt? Hearing none, is there a motion by the board?
Regarding ordinance 24-002, I move to approve the staff's recommendation as presented to rezone parcel 047011 located at 1840 US Highway 29 from IND to the MU2 zoning classification.
Thank you, Ms. Moody. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Muhammad. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right. All opposed? And that is approved unanimously. Is there a motion for the statement of consistency and reasonableness?
I move to adopt a statement of consistency and reasonableness stating that we find that this rezoning is consistent in general with the town's comprehensive land use plan for requirements of North Carolina General Statutes 160D-605A. Said plan stating specifically about this area, quote, "This is a strip of mixed development on both sides along North Salisbury Avenue, US Highway 29, from about 1625, the old waste station site, to about 2175 Yadkin Baptist Church Road that is currently zoned industrial IND for industrial development. These are relatively small lots that over time will likely transition to retail uses, especially if the surrounding properties are developed into industrial uses and the North Carolina fencing property is developed into some sort of mixed-use development. We would suggest rezoning this to an appropriate commercial zoning classification, C29, to promote commercial development over time. We further find this zoning to be reasonable in all ways as prescribed by North Carolina General Statutes 160D-605B. This rezoning will be beneficial to the citizens of the town of Spencer."
All right, thank you, Ms. Sledge. There is a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Howe. All in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is also approved unanimously.
And I'll give you a quick preview. This property owner is also asked to be annexed into the town. We'll be bringing that to you in the near future.
That's wonderful. All right, thank you. And now I will get back to my agenda. All right. The next item is for the town clerk to present the certificate of sufficiency for the proposed Hawkins Meadows annexation. We do have that certificate of sufficiency in your agenda packet, Mr. Blunt.
Our clerk's not available tonight, so I'll serve as the pseudo clerk. I won't even claim assistant clerk. As you'll remember, in the past, a petition was submitted to the town requesting annexation of this property on Hawkinstown Road. The next step in that process is for you to authorize the clerk to investigate that petition, which you did. And during the process of investigation, we realized that it was physically closer to Salisbury's border than it was to ours. So we had to create and approve an annexation agreement between Salisbury and Spencer, which has now been done. and therefore your clerk is now, by the copy of the signed certificate of sufficiency in your package, declaring that the petition is sufficient. So don't know that an official motion has to take place, but you might want to make a motion to accept that.
Correct. So board, any questions for Mr. Blum on that? And if there aren't, is there a motion to accept the certificate of sufficiency?
So moved.
All right, there's a motion by Mr. Muhammad. There's a second by Mr. Howe. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, all opposed? And that's approved unanimously. All right, next item is Resolution 24-05, which would set the public hearing date for the Hawkins Meadows annexation.
And I don't need to say much, but that's the next step in the annexation process is y'all approve that resolution. We set the public hearing date, we advertise, we post it, and then on the proposed date, we will hold that public hearing.
Correct. And remind the board the date of that proposed public hearing that's been suggested. Pre-agenda meeting for March. Correct, yes.
Is that no, that's not the date of our retreat. It's the week before. Is that correct?
Well, it's the evening of our retreat. So,
okay, so
if
we have the public hearing.
We've got the public hearing. We'll do that. Then we've got the we'll do our meeting, our pre-agenda meeting, and then we'll move into our community input session for our strategic planning session the next day.
Okay.
And my guess is this will get quite a few folks out to provide input for our
We'll
strategic
fill the
planning.
room for you.
Yeah. All right. So, board, is there a motion to approve Resolution 24-05 to set that hearing date?
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the resolution as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Sledge. All in favor? All right. All opposed? And that is approved unanimously, and that public hearing date has been set. Okay. The next item is to consider approving the Spencer portion of the Rowan County Wayfinding Program and authorizing the town manager to execute an encroachment agreement with NCDOT. Mr. Francis.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor and members of the board. We did receive a presentation at the pre-agenda meeting from Mr. Meacham and also Mr. Bazell, who is the designer of the program. And so if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But as the mayor described, the requested action would be to authorize us moving forward with an encroachment from NCDOT. We did provide some further comments to the Tourism Authority and Mr. Bazell on some of the design elements that were presented. We found a few, I guess you call them clerical adjustments, but some of the labeling that we provided to them. But we believe as a whole it is consistent with what staff has suggested to them throughout the process. And the next step after they get through all this and the various approvals of this project will have to, of course, then go out to bid, and will hopefully come back within the budget that the TDA has established for the overall countywide program. And I think at that point we'll maybe get some further clarification on some of the details depending on how the bids come back in.
Will we be bidding that? Will we be bidding that, or that goes through the whole county?
Right. The tourism development authority would be doing the bidding process.
Okay.
Just a comment, I was following along at home. I didn't want to interrupt, but I thought the signs looked absolutely amazing. I thought this is really cool. It's really neat.
Any other questions on this item? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to approve the encroachment agreement?
So moved.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Muhammad. All in favor? All right, all opposed? And that's approved unanimously. Okay. Next item is to consider authorizing our town staff to pursue a Blanche and Julian Robertson Family Foundation grant for 401 11th Street design. That would be the upfit of the former Carter House that was granted to the town right there at the Standback Forest parking lot. Mr. Granzis.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board, and we actually have Joe Morris with us virtually, who is going to present this and tell us about the grant opportunity.
It's the man, the myth, the legend. Good evening, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Good evening, Mayor and Board. I've, through the magic of the internet, set a couple of pictures down to Mike Shue, who's going to screen share some of the images of the Carter House at 401 11th Street. And I think Mike's going to queue up that PowerPoint perhaps as I'm speaking. But the purpose of coming to you tonight is to inform and request of the board consideration of pursuit of a grant through the Blanche and Julian Robertson Family Foundation of $25,000. We've been in consultation with one of our friends in the architecture community, and they've given us an estimate of $35,000 to $45,000 for design services for the property, including the landscaping. The building is a brick residential structure. It's a brick ranch. It's a little less than 2,700 square feet with a two-car garage that is a little less than 700 square feet. It sits on 1.16 acres. It's immediately adjacent to the Sandback Educational Forest. And what we would like to ask the board is to authorize town staff to apply for the grant. It's due on, the application is due on February 20th. And what we would be asking for is $25,000 from the Robertson Foundation. I anticipate that this project would probably be up and going if funded in the coming fiscal year, and we would need to augment the budget for the design process with town funds. And so we don't have we have a range of $35,000 to $45,000. I will note that because it is a residential structure, that will need some engineering analysis of the load-bearing capacity of the floors and that sort of thing, so that we can make sure it can be converted properly to a commercial or public use. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have about the application for the grant.
Joe, can you talk a little bit to the board about kind of anticipated vision for what it might be transformed into, the uses?
So one of the things that we have been evaluating from the staff perspective is the idea through our planning through the Creating Outdoor Recreation Economies process, the idea that we would eventually have dedicated staff for recreation in Spencer. And, you know, we're adding quite a bit. We doubled the size of the Sandback Educational Forest this past year, adding another 45 acres. We have built the Yadkin River Park trailhead. We have almost 3 acres of land out there for future development of an overlook park, and we're going to build a fantastic park in the center of downtown Spencer in front of Town Hall. And so adding all of these facilities is leading us to the idea that we actually need space for staff. We have potentially need for space to store equipment. And one of the sort of unfulfilled promises of the Standback Educational Forest is that we're really not pursuing any kind of educational programming there. And it's largely due to the fact that there are no restrooms on site. The Carter House is actually a 2-story house with a walkout basement. It's it's tied into the city utility system. It's tied into the sewer. It has electricity, gas on the site. It would be possible through a rigorous design review of the property to design the lower level perhaps to have restroom facilities for school groups that are coming to the educational forest. And so the idea of this building is to adaptively reuse it from a residential structure to a facility that provides office space, restrooms, equipment storage. There's actually a small storage building on the property now that would be perfect for storing mowers and that sort of thing. And also the two-car garage potentially could be some type of a program space for educational programs, for garden clubs to meet and that sort of thing. And so that's what we want to go through as a process that evaluates how this particular structure might plug into the community's future needs for recreation in Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Or do you have any questions on this item?
I'm not sure, Mr. Morris or Mr. Franzese, can you speak to, I know I see here the cost of the design services, estimation between $35,000 and $45,000. Can you tell us more about the decision to request $25,000 from the Robertson Family Foundation Group?
Yes, and Mr. Morris will jump in as needed, but that's our comfort level or a recommendation for what we think would be received well by the foundation in terms of an application. We think that is a level that would be more successful than funding than if we, for example, ask for the whole project. I think there is a preference towards leveraging funds versus totally funding something. So showing some level of partnership goes a long way. Also, and just having a lower request amount, we think would help us in the application process. We do have another application from the town in this same grant program for the mural project, which we've been successful a few times, and so we're also cognizant of that as well.
Thank you.
Board, other questions? All right, hearing none. Is there a motion to authorize town staff to pursue the Blanche and Julian Robertson Family Foundation grant for the 401 11th Street design?
Enthusiastically, I'm going to use that.
All right, there's an enthusiastic motion by Mr. Howe. Is there an enthusiastic second?
Second.
Sounded enthusiastic.
Well, I'm sorry, with no hesitation. I second.
All right, there's a second by Ms. Sledge. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved unanimously. Go win us some money, Joe.
And if I may, I would like to add that we have identified another grant opportunity that we think could help with the construction phase of this. And I don't know, Joe, if you want to give a bit of an update on that one as well.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So we know that there is a program that's currently available to small communities like Spencer through Lowe's, the Lowe's Foundation. They have a hometown improvement grant program, and I feel like this project would be a really good fit for that application. I'm still reading the grant criteria and learning about it, but I think it would go a long way toward the construction component of this. And I would hope to be able to report back through the town manager more about this opportunity in the next few days.
And Joe, remind us what the application cycle is for that grant.
So on the Robertson Foundation, it's due on February 20th, and for the Lowe's Foundation grant, it's actually February 19th. But there is actually a kind of an evaluation phase where there's some judging by the Lowe's Foundation staff, to see if the project would be suitable for further consideration. So there's very preliminary opportunity where I'll just provide an overview of the project, and then they'll let us know if there's a sort of a next step that we can take. And once we have that information, I'll know more about the magnitude of the grant and how it might fit into our timeline for the design and the construction. And so it's kind of a little bit of a two-step process, but that's due on the 19th.
So that being the case, I'm assuming you would like board authorization to pursue that grant as well tonight.
I always like to have the board behind me. This opportunity availed itself to me just yesterday, and so I know I'm moving. I'm sort of operating without a trapeze net on this. But if you're willing to authorize the staff to pursue that, I would certainly welcome that official authorization.
So this is an opportunity that was actually we were made aware of by Representative Harry Warren. So I'm excited that we have an opportunity to pursue this. My recommendation would be to the board that we go ahead and authorize Mr. Morrison's staff to move forward with applying at least the preliminary application.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we could just give him a blanket authorization. Find us money, Joe, and go ahead and write those grants.
All right, board. So that being the case, it sounds like everybody's in agreement. Is there a motion to authorize them to pursue this grant?
So move.
Motion by Mr. Muhammad. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem. All in favor? All right. All opposed? And that is enthusiastically, unanimously approved.
Mr. Mayor, ask
Thank you very much.
Joe.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, Joe, I'm not in the commercial construction business, but I'm assuming if design is plus or minus 35,000, then upfitting would be, I'm assuming, six figures. What do we think on that?
So we've been given a range of $140 to $180 a square foot, depending on the level of finishes. And that part of the budget too includes this engineering analysis for the design part of it. And so there's a little bit of an unknown about that. But so yeah, I think easily it's a $300,000 to $400,000 proposition, or could be greater than that depending on what we want to do. But I'll add this: the building itself is in pristine condition. The Carters took excellent care of it. The roof is good. The HVAC system is relatively new. It's clean as a whistle. It will be, if we don't have to get into a lot of structural components, it should be a very straightforward project for us. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be inexpensive because we want to do a really nice job with it. But I think realistically, $500,000 would probably be a high end. Although I've been in conversation with our town manager the last couple of days about some of the projects that the town is being presented with that are in the $1 million range, which really a multi-million-dollar range. And so construction prices are very high right now. But I think 3 to 5 is realistic.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Morris.
Thank
Our next agenda item is to consider adopting a budget ordinance to accept a Rowan Arts Council grassroots grants and a Rowan Arts ARPA grant totaling $12,500.
And with that, we're actually going to go back to a virtual presentation. Our MPA intern, Sky Allen, is with us, and she's going to talk about this and give a little update on the public art project.
Good evening, Mayor and Board of Aldermen. How am I coming through?
Good.
You got
We can hear you just fine.
Wonderful to hear. I have a little PowerPoint presentation that I shared with Mr. Shute. Thank you very much. All right, so I'm here to provide you a short update on a couple new developments with the Downtown Spencer mural project. If you wouldn't mind moving on to the next slide. So the first award we've received is from the Rowan Arts Council, who has previously funded the Downtown Spencer mural project, and they've renewed their commitment to the project with 2 new grants from last fall. They have awarded the project with $7,500 from the Grassroots Grant and $5,000 from the ARPA Grassroots Grant. I would ask that you accept these 2 grants under Budget Ordinance number 23-14. 0.010. So that's the primary presentation. Otherwise, I wanted to provide you with an update on the requests that the board made of alterations to the Ferris mural. If you could go to the second version. So this is version 3.A. This is the version that came before you previously. You had requested that we make that two specific changes get made. One to the train in the left corner to be a Spencer-specific train, and one to the water towers to be something that more related to downtown. The artist has made a new version 3.B, if you mind sliding over to the next one. And as you can see, there is now the sort of business outlines of downtown, the silhouettes, I mean. And in the top left corner, the train has been changed to a train that was used in Spencer and would be recognizable to people at the North Carolina Transportation Museum. And the final bit of presentation I have for you all tonight is an exciting new event that Kyle and I have been putting together. This event is designed to inspire the artist Max Dowdle, who will be painting our new town hall mural. And this will be a mural that will celebrate the labor history and volunteer energy of Spencer. Mr. Kyle Harris has been my partner in developing this event, and if I could invite him up to the front to read the invitation that we put together.
All right. Thank you very much, Sky. First of all, I do want to thank Sky, obviously, for pursuing these grants and being so successful with funding the mural project. And of course, I also want to thank our Public Art Committee, who have helped us with mural development as well as planning our upcoming event. As I was sitting back there, it was kind of funny. I was looking at the graphic design for this PowerPoint, and I thought that yellow and orange is very 70s, but I think we're actually going to go back even further with this labor history project. So I wanted to give you all a quick overview of not only the labor history storytelling project that we have developed, but also its relationship specifically to the Town Hall mural. So as you all are aware, the Public Art Committee has been working on the Town Hall mural for some time now. We were initially working with an artist, and that process we found was the concept art that we were getting was not necessarily living up to the expectations that we have. And I wanted to sort of address the idea of the expectations that we have for this artwork. Obviously, looking out here on the outside wall facing Fifth Street, that entire wall will be the canvas for the Town Hall mural. And so obviously, among all of the murals that will be done through this project with this funding, we've always identified this as being the most important mural. Not only does it have to be good, it has to be better than good, it has to be excellent. And so given that our initial sort of work with the first artist was unsuccessful, our committee got together, we went back to the drawing board, and we really thought, what do we need to do to make the Town Hall mural be an exceptional center point for the town? And obviously the theme of labor history, Spencer's labor history, was always the sort of core theme. You know, that was, we felt, and I think everyone felt from the beginning that that was the correct theme for this mural. Even thinking tonight back of our conversations about new manufacturing and industry for Spencer moving forward, looking back to our industrial and manufacturing roots, as well as other types of labor throughout the community, we really want to be celebrated in this mural. And so we were really pleased with finding Max Dowdle, the artist. And I think you all had the opportunity to have at least one Zoom conversation with him in the past. And we We are really excited to work with him for several reasons. One is that just the quality of his artwork is very exceptional. We found that he's done a lot of interesting historical murals depicting people and figures and the human body, as well as sort of, I think he's already done a mural with a streetcar. So we kind of see that he can provide that perspective as well. But also his public input process is key for why we selected him as being the correct artist for this mural. In fact, in his proposal to work with us, he highlighted not only his detailed public input process, but also his ability to constantly adapt a design to fit changing feedback. And so we thought, this is the guy. So now that we have such an exceptional artist working with us with a process, we want to be able to utilize him to the greatest extent possible. And so that's where the idea of not only a labor history night, which is a specific event that I'll talk about, but an overall labor history storytelling project that the town is launching. So I'll talk about the project before I talk about the event, which is next week. So as part of the mural development process, we've played with the idea of, for example, using QR codes on the mural to connect to sort of additional resources or information potentially on the town website, or to other historical and archival materials. And we thought that could be a really interesting opportunity to, for the town to begin, well, I won't say begin because there's been a lot of work done by other organizations in the past, like the museum, but to look more deliberatively at collecting historical stories about Spencer. Not only stories, but photographs, memorabilia, documents, letters, things that families may have that could potentially be lost or that are not sort of in the public consciousness. So this labor history project is about inviting the community to submit their own personal experiences or family stories related to labor history, both in the past and up to the present day. The idea is that these materials and this inspiration will be used to clearly be displayed on the new town hall mural. You know, we could have just asked Max Dowdle to put together sort of a, I don't want to say generic mural, but, you know, do your own research about Spencer's labor history and put together a mural. No, we could have done that, but we thought that having a larger project and a process to sort of couch that would be a really interesting project. And so next week on Thursday, the Public Art Committee is facilitating a neighborhood meeting, or sort of a public meeting, called our Labor History Storytelling Social Night, where we're inviting the entire community, although not everyone can show up because the library can only hold so many people. But we're inviting as many people as possible to come and join us in a process to talk about their own stories with Spencer's labor history. We're anticipating this project as being potentially one of several, but we haven't really identified a subsequent event. But given how successful this is, we may do it again in the future. This is also not necessarily the end of our public input process. We have a website and an online form where people can submit their stories about labor history, talk to us about it. We're sort of in the process of finalizing a sort of historical and archival process to get these materials documented. So more to come soon, but we do anticipate that over the long run, the town could potentially have some sort of process to collect and gather the community stories about our labor history. Right. Any questions so far? It's a big project.
Board, any questions?
Is it too early in your planning process to ask about community access to that archival process in terms of not just submission, but also review of?
Right. So obviously we'll have to work with our attorney on sort of the information we receive, how can it be used, what types of waivers or disclosures or authorizations might need to be signed. But we do anticipate having some level of sort of an open archive. We did some research. I think the Library of Congress has an excellent labor history archive, which if you haven't checked it out, it's sort of a model that we're using. And I will say, to the museum's credit, they've already done a lot of this type of work. They've done interviews with a lot of former workers at the Spencer shops. I had the chance of listening to some of those interviews, sort of as we were getting ideas for this project. We definitely will be sending a lot of that material to the artist, but we don't want to just use what's already been done in the past. We kind of want to bring it to the present and get people excited and engaged for this process.
To make an addendum, we also wanted to expand the people whose stories were being told. A lot of the primary archives that we've found around this area have all pretty much focused just on the railroad, and we wanted to expand beyond the railroad to the stories of people who worked in the home, to teachers, to grocers, to cobblers, and everyone, including the railroad workers who helped to build Spencer, and to not just keep us in the past, but keep recognizing the different people over time who have built Spencer.
Board, any other questions?
No, it sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it.
Exciting.
And if I could just conclude by asking y'all, if you know of anyone specifically who you think might have compelling stories, let me know. We've already sent out several invitations in the mail. We've obviously invited a lot of people by email. But of course, the idea is to get people engaged who have stories to share that haven't been shared. And for those stories to not only be documented, but also to inspire this town hall mural.
Yeah, there was a watchmaker's school here in Spencer, and I'm put the word out if there's anybody who knows someone who might have had somebody involved in that process. So,
very exciting.
Mayor Williams, yes, to follow up on Alderwoman Moody's question. We have worked on a release, so the people that are going to be interviewed or storytelling, we do have a release that's fairly comprehensive that deals with likenesses and voice, video imaging, copies of letters or copies of photographs that they submit that we're asking them to release to the town a license to reproduce and reuse those. And so the answer is to the extent that people are willing to release their image and their voice and these other copies, I think the intent is for those to be released for this project to be used as an archive and reproduced. So hopefully. Yeah.
Okay. Board, is there a motion to adopt the budget ordinance to accept these two grants?
So moved.
All right, there's a motion by Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Howe. All in favor? All right, all opposed? And that is approved unanimously.
Thanks, Kyle.
Sky and Kyle, thank you both very, very much for your work on this.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Board and Mayor.
All right. The next item on our agenda is to consider authorizing the town manager to execute amendment number 1 to the memorandum of agreement with the North Carolina League of Municipalities for municipal accounting service and cybersecurity grant and the guidance and technical assistance grant. Mr. Francis.
Thank you once again. I'm going to ask our finance officer, Heather Can, to come forward and join in this discussion. But we are excited about the opportunity to talk to you about this. And you'll recall previously we talked about the league's offerings that they're making available across the state, and we have already entered into an agreement with the league for the overall program that allows this municipal accounting software that we're talking about today. Since we last met and talked about this, we had the opportunity to have several demonstrations, both from the vendor, the software vendor, directly from them, but also from users. Our staff has been able to see what the software looks like from their perspective. And long story short, we believe that it would be in the best interest of the town to make the transition to this provided software through the league's program. There are going to be, I believe, 55 units across the state that are able to take part in this program, where the league is making the initial investment and the first 3 years of licensing fees and covering that through their ARPA allocation, and the town's responsibility for it would pick up in year 4. And there's also a bit of a long road before that happens. It would be 2026 before we go live with the new software, so we still have a few years to get to continue using what we have, but also to get ready. And then, but after that, it would then be 3 years. So our responsibility for the software would not occur until fiscal year 2029. Heather, if you'd like to add any highlights about the software and its functionalities.
I feel like good evening, sorry. I feel like the software would just kind of bring us forward and offer more technology than what we currently have. For example, we write paper checks, and it takes both of our signatures to get those checks done. And the software has the capabilities to print our signatures on the checks. We also have the ability for ACH payments as well. The payroll, when we sat down with one of the towns that already uses the software, it took her 30 minutes to process payroll. And that was from beginning to end, checking time sheets and time, all the way to sending the file to the bank. So with that, just cutting that time frame down, and they had about the same amount of employees as we have. So there was just some of the highlights of what looked good for me, whenever I was looking at the software.
Board questions? Yeah.
Obviously, I have questions. Always have questions. My first question is, why will it not go into effect until 2026? What's the process for that?
Well, we're in line. I believe we're
I think number 42.
Number 42 of 55.
Okay, so it's a time factor then. Okay, because that ARPA funding is supposed to be used by the end of 2026. Is that not correct?
That's correct. I believe so. I believe all of the funds have to be encumbered by the end of 2025 and spent by the end of 2026. So, but the league is diligently working through this process in order to make sure that all those timeframes are met.
Okay. This speaks to towns or municipalities with a population of 25,000 or less. As our population grows, will we see changes in the amounts of what our costs will be? Is that something that has been asked?
So there is, and I don't believe I have all those details in the packet, but there are thresholds based on population. And I'm trying to remember if the first break was at 5,000 or if it was at 10,000 and below.
I want to say that it was at 5,000.
5,000. If we go beyond 5,000, perhaps it may. We could double check on that, but it was, the software costs would be significantly different at larger populations above 10, above 25, and so on.
It seems to me that I remember that our police department had some kind of a hybrid payroll process. Will that be incorporated in this as well?
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. The town that we had that demoed the software for us, police department and fire department, with the way their cycles were set up, the same as ours.
And I think that was all I had. So thank you.
Other questions for me?
I need to step out again.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
All in favor? All right. All opposed? All right. That's approved unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on to our departmental reports. We'll start with the planning report. Mr. Blunt.
Mayor, members of the board, you have my written report in your package. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Really?
Got that speech nailed down.
All right, board,
Okay.
any questions? Hearing none. Thank you for your report. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, next is our code enforcement report. Chief File.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I don't think I can be that fast, but I'll try not to stretch it out too long. Before we go into the monthly reports, if you would be so kind as to allow me, I would like to call up two of my officers and present a few certificates. Sergeant Everett, Sergeant Leonard, both are behind me, and they painstakingly went through a 2-month-long leadership management program alongside me. I'm going to put the alongside me part because that probably made it a little worse. But it was definitely something I think will benefit the agency and one of the longer courses that we attend. So I wanted to call them up and present them with their certificates tonight and just thank them for their dedication to the town. And obviously they make the department really good and really easy for me to run. So.
And with those uniforms, they make them look good too.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, one of them doesn't like wearing a uniform too much, so I may or may not have told him I'd donned the white shirt for him tonight. So,
Good job.
but thank both of you.
Appreciate it.
Thank
you all
Thank
very
you
much.
very much. Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
A little bit of a hard, when you've been out of school or out of college for some time, to go back to a program such as this that required weekly assignments and projects and tests. It was a little bit of a different thing for people that's been out of that game for a little bit. So definitely enjoyed it though. You have the monthly code enforcement report in front of you. I will definitely answer any questions you may have. 29 cases were built. 16 of those are open. Obviously, there are notices have been sent out to the other individuals that were found in violation. We did have 13 of them that were enforced abatement, which means we sent out notices. We got voluntary compliance on it, so we're able to close those out. So we're still currently working with our partners at Central Carolina. We have brought on the part-time code enforcement officer that we spoke about. He has worked his first day here with us. 7 hours, he built 15 cases. So he went out and got to it. So that is, to tell you, that's a high number of cases to be built that quick. That was a few follow-ups mixed in there, and then 15 cases were built. So I think it's perfect timing because, spring is right around the corner, so is the grass and the brush and all those things begin growing. Obviously, we're going to have the need for that part-time position as we continue our search for a full-time spot. We do have, I believe, Peter may have to correct me on this, 5 or 6 applicants currently.
I have not looked in there this week, so I think the last time I looked, it was maybe 4 or 5, but I don't know if we've got some additional.
I think we've got one additional one, so there are some pretty good possibilities in there. So we're going to begin that process of vetting those out. Each one of them brings something unique to the town, so it's going to take a little bit of time to really decide what's going to be the right fit for us. Obviously, regardless of who we select as a full-time, it's still going to be some time before we can really send them to the training and get them to where we'll be comfortable just letting them kind of operate standalone as has been done previously. But with our part-time help now, I believe we're going to be okay. So the goal is maybe to work the part-time code guy about 1 day a week or 2 half days per week. And we have the funding in the current budget to allow for that since we've had the opening in code enforcement. So we should be able to stay level and maintain, and then as we've been doing, respond to any calls that come in or any complaints that come in through the portals.
Board, any question?
This complaint that the business has at 904 South Salisbury Avenue with the dilapidated house next door, what, if anything, can be done to address?
Well, that one is actually it stayed on the list just because we've been monitoring it. I will tell you that house is being continually worked on. So we have to have a little bit of flexibility with the individuals that are working on it. So the initial complaints that were brought in were addressed, but we did leave it on here just so we can monitor it. So we're still doing weekly or bi-weekly checks. We'll ride by there and see what they've been doing. So they are actively still working on that parcel. So I mean, ultimately, we're going to have there's going to be a nice place when they're finished with it. But they are a little bit slower than what we may like to see. But they are still continuing working on it, though.
So this is not another complaint that they lodged.
Right. Yeah. We actually, like I said, we left it in there, and we will probably leave that one open for some time until we really see if they're finished with the work, just so we can monitor it. Now, obviously, if there's we would regenerate a new one ourselves if the code officer went out there and saw some egregious violation that really wasn't narrowly related to the one that was in there before. If there was a debris pile there, we would send out a new NOV on that debris pile, and you would see it pop back into the report with an additional case. So there's a possibility you may see one that the code guy builds. But so far, they've been doing fairly good on maintaining, everything that we've sent to them and told them to do. So.
Other questions on code enforcement?
I have one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I guess, just a follow-up. Out on north, well, it was really 29, but way out there. I know we talked before about the folks that are operating the whatever that is under the tree. The only reason I bring it up is occasionally I come home and it's dark, and I mean the other night there were still 30 cars parked there at that dark, and someone's going to pop a car out there eventually. It's going to happen. Obviously we support businesses, and I want to support businesses, but I mean they're basically operating out of a tent. Any progress there?
That may be one you want to follow up on. I know there's been some notices made.
There are actually 3 properties on that end of town that we might as well call junkyards at this point. Wow. They have been notified in writing twice now about the storage of the junk vehicles specifically. And what you're talking about is another violation, which is parking in the road right away. The letter basically tells them they can't park in the front yard setback, which for those properties is 80 feet from the property line back. And almost all the vehicles he's got parked out there are in that front yard setback. The first time we sent a letter, he made some effort to move them back. And since that letter, he's gotten worse, come with more vehicles more to the front. I've notified the chief, since he's over code enforcement. I think he entered it as a code violation. So the next step would be to violate him and start fining him for the violation.
Okay. Thank you.
I believe we may be getting close to that time frame. Well, obviously, we always hope for voluntary compliance. We don't like to hit people in their pocketbook, or if we don't have to. But yeah, I believe it's been. We opened that case. Was that about 3 weeks ago, Steve? So I believe we opened it about 3 weeks ago. So typically we give a little time, especially in a case like that where obviously it's going to take a lot of work. It's not as simple as picking up debris in the front yard. But if we don't see some movement on it fairly soon, I believe that's going to be the direction we go with it.
Anything else for you? All right, we'll move on to the police department report.
All righty. 2,570 events logged for this month. This is the first month I was able to provide the ACE team report. We stuck a photo in there. I wanted you to see that the guys are wearing it out, and that's good. That's what we pay them for. That's what we want. 3 guns seized this month, 96 traffic stops. This is just by that ACE team. Keeping in mind, they're not both full-time on that assignment yet, so one of them is still assigned to patrol, so he's answering patrol calls while he's doing the job of the ACE team also. You see on their total arrest, so there were 37, with 20 of those being felony violations, 84 cited charges, 14 warrants served, 3 firearms, and then obviously you can see from the photograph, pretty large amount of cash, a lot of drugs. So if you see, if you take notice, there was definitely some fentanyl that was recovered. I'm at the flipping reference here. 113 grams of marijuana, 4 grams of fentanyl, half a gram of cocaine, 6.5 grams of meth, and then 17 individual items of drug paraphernalia. So anybody that knows about the fentanyl problem that we have, 4 grams is a lot.
That's a lot.
It's a whole lot. 2 milligrams is a deadly level. So we just took 4,000 milligrams off the street. Nice. So definitely excited about what's going on with that. I'll be very happy as soon as we can get that team fully up and going by themselves where they can make their own schedule. They're trying to still work around the patrol schedule to back patrol officers up, but I see that coming probably within the next, we'll say probably the next month and a half. And we have 2 officers starting this coming Monday, so that will put us full staff. So definitely thankful for your support of allowing that to happen and get us to where we're at. It's a good thing when we've got more people applying right now than we do have positions, because that's not typical for law enforcement. It's not typical in this county or across the nation. So we're very excited to see that. We've kind of got people in the waiting room, if you will, wanting positions. So that is that's not common. So we're going to definitely try to continue that. I think word is out about what we're doing. I will tell you, you're probably going to get called. Somebody's going to call you and gripe about getting pulled over. I've had 2 complaints in the last week. Both of them were going more than 20 miles per hour over the speed limit in our downtown area. So I told them they earned what they got. And as long as my officer was not rude to them and didn't do anything outlandish, sorry, you're going to have to go before the judge. So you may get complaints about the increased enforcement, but it's really not increased enforcement. We're just going back to the level where we should have been, remembering that we've been so low on staff. We're trying to run with 3 officers. It was really hard to maintain the level where we wanted to be. So now we're bringing it back to where we should be. And obviously you can look at what's being targeted by the ACE team. This is not Granny going to church on Sunday. These are our resident drug dealers and drug users. We're trying to get that stuff off the street, so we're going to continue trying to do that. And I wish I could have counted them without feeling like I was lying. They actually recovered 7 firearms. However, 4 of them came in just before this report period, so I wasn't able to tack them in there. But so we've got 7 off the street. So definitely thankful for them. But I can answer any questions you may have about the PD monthly report.
I don't have a question. I have a statement. What I'll say is bring on the complaints, because this is what we as a board asked for when we funded these positions. We knew there was a problem, and we appreciate you getting it up and running. And all I can say is it's working, and that's fantastic.
Definitely.
We want to send a message that we're not going to tolerate that mess in our community, and I think we've gotten a good start.
Absolutely. Anybody that complains, just remind them there's definitely a correlation between the blue lights coming on and traffic enforcement, this type of traffic enforcement, and the crime rate. So we're going to keep the crime rate down. That's our goal, and this is a good way to get it there. If they complain about getting pulled over, they shouldn't have been breaking the law. I'll tell you, we don't give out made up tickets. So, and there's obviously a lot of warning citations. If we think we can correct the problem with a warning, that's what we do. For the ones where they need to be before a judge, that's where we put them though. But thank you again for all of your support.
Do I remember that confiscated money and guns go to the state and then it's allocated back?
Yeah, ultimately it will be. So there'll be drug taxes owed. The firearms likely will come back directly to the agency for official use or trade is typically the way it comes back to us. So that helps fund our training typically. So if we're awarded a gun back by the judge, it comes directly back to us, and then we're able to trade it into the police supply store and swap it out for ammunition or training items. As far as the money goes, we typically see about a 70 or 80% that comes back to us if it goes that direction. So there's a lot involved in that. Obviously, we have to get the state involved on that level, and then they take the portion out for the drug taxes, and then we get a portion back. That comes directly back to the agency as far as using for counter drug or any valid need that we can use as far as enforcement level. So yeah, we've actually got about 50,000 outstanding currently, I believe. There again, when you have outstanding drug taxes, it's the ability to go out and collect on it. So there's very few of those agents in the state that will come collect. But when they do, we just magically get a deposit into our account. So definitely nice to have that little extra fund to help us support our programs. All right. All right.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Good job. All right, Fire Department, Chief Lanning.
Mayor and Board, how are you this afternoon?
Good.
How are you? How are you?
You sound like you're battling a cold.
Do what?
You sound like you're battling a cold.
For a couple weeks, I feel like. But you have my written report before you. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll answer as best that I can.
Did somebody tell you all to be short tonight?
No, my normal ask is taken care of. So.
Very good. Board, any questions on the report for the month? All right. Chief, thanks for all you do.
I think I did see that there's a date for the coffee with the chief.
Yes.
It's been established.
Yep, February 20th from 5 to 6:30 here at Town Hall. And then the engineer process, the application process closes on Friday. So we're hopeful we'll receive a couple more in the next few days. So we've attempted some different marketing strategies on Facebook and social media, so try to reach a greater crowd.
Great. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Mr. Taylor, Public Works.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board.
Good evening.
You have my report in front of you. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
I was going to say,
you gotta go with it, you know? You gotta go with it.
Yeah.
For sure. Just a couple items, though, seriously. The leaf vacs have stopped running until spring cleanup, so they will not be. You'll see a couple piles laying around, and I'll get code enforcement on those to get them bagged up and get them picked up. So it'll start back on March the 11th this year. That's the first week, the 15th. So our spring mulch giveaway has been set for April the 20th. So it will come, I'll remind you, several months coming. Same rules apply, three deliveries available per household in town. I believe they'll deliver out of side of town. The final sanitation numbers, we were about 22 and a quarter tons less than we were last year. So that gets us back within about 1 ton of where we were before COVID. Which the residential growth that we're having right now, I see it going back up again next year. So it'll all level out in its time. So everything's good. The second sanitation truck has been repaired. It was a DEF issue, which is our backup truck, which was not under warranty, of course. Our other truck is having some DEF issues, but it's under warranty, so it's going back to the shop on Thursday. Be back to us by Monday to be put back in service. So we got it working out. The update on the dam situation that we have, they have completed our EAP. It has been submitted and accepted. They did accept the EAP, so that has been taken care of. Our engineers are staying in touch with us constantly. They've also submitted that grant application with the state. For the 300,000, they're looking at as far as for that'll be designed for the dam, just depending on which option we want to go with, and they'll provide us with several options of what we can do with the pond once that comes in. But this is a funding possibility, to help us with the design phase of that process. Only other thing I had was a CCAP update. I have spoken with Chris Loop several times this week. He has put his 2 cents worth into the state to see what he can find out. I've also sent a message to them, and I've had Cindy send a message to them. So we're trying to find out everything we can about the permit. We still don't know anything about the permit, but Cindy has provided me with a list of contractors. I'm going to go ahead and provide those to the contractors that she had on the list, and that way we're having a step ahead, and we're still hopefully banking on the permit coming in this month. And then we get started and get done before June. That's the goal. So I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Couple.
Sure.
And they're kind of related questions with Ms. Host's comments earlier about the potholes in the Powellville. Our understanding, at least my understanding, was that for this year, we focused on those 2 or 3 roads down in the back, Jordan Avenue. That's where we devoted that money, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And that actually used 2 fiscal years.
That was 2 years
Actually combined together.
Mm-hmm.
So it started really with last year's plus this year's together to do that overall project. And
So
there was some of the
next fiscal
year. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's what I thought. I just wanted to answer her question she asked. I thought we'd address it.
But also, if you'll speak to our pavement rating system and prioritization, because I think that's something that we want to make sure our residents understand is we've got a process, and we've got a methodology by which we are repaving, which is something several years ago and before we never had.
That's correct.
And so, we've got a defensible reason for why we are paving the streets we pave when we do.
Correct. We had an evaluation done of our streets 2 years ago?
2021.
2021, almost 3 years ago now. And what it did is it went around and identified the streets in town by their condition, traffic counts. It took into consideration a lot of things and rated those streets by what needed to be done first. So basically, we're working off of that list directly down. When we do not, is when we try to lump streets together. That's where I get my best paving bang for the buck, because I don't have to transport. I hate to have a little piece of street here, a little piece of street there. So we try to lump them together. So if we can jump 2 and get twice as much paving done, then we'll do that. And that's kind of what we did this last time. We lumped some together to get Jordan and Alexander and all of that kind of bunched together, because they were all in the top 10. So it kind of lumps them together. As we get further down the list, we won't be able to do that. There'll be longer pieces and even shorter pieces, but we'll run out of ways to group those together, and it won't do that. So, but that's what we're basing our paving off of, is the evaluation that we had done 2 years ago.
Question on a related question, and actually it was I guess a complaint of sorts from a neighbor, and unfortunately I think about another neighbor. But with Jordan Avenue, I'm not even sure what happened, but I'm assuming it was some type of water main issue or a new tap or something to cut a big hole in the brand new pavement. And a neighbor was very unhappy about that. And
I have mentioned that to SRU, and they should be out there to get that fixed. The problem is right now with the weather situation, asphalt is unachievable, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
They're not running it. So they've got stone in it for the time being, and they are keeping up with it. There's another area on, I believe it's Kane Street, where they did a sewer tap, and they're in the same boat.
Yeah, one up on.
But yeah, I saw that, and that kind of made my heart break a little bit. But we've got a patch in a brand new street.
It's inevitable, though.
Well,
it happens. I've dealt with it.
Wash a car, get rain, pave a street, get a sewer cut.
And of course, if we need a sewer tap, or if we had a main break in front of our house last year, you don't worry about does it cut at the pavement. You want the water fixed. I get that.
Right.
Do we have an agreement of sorts with them about how they do that, or are we just worried kind of at their mercy? I'm
as
just
far
curious.
as
how the repaving is done.
Yeah,
So, for example, City of Winston-Salem, their DOT implemented a policy where if their water utility goes in and makes a cut, they make them actually repave for a certain distance, full road width, where the cut's been made.
Okay.
As opposed to a spot patch.
Actually, no, with SRU, it's actually just a patch. They'll come in and patch the street back to its existing condition. Now, if they want, if they damage further out, then they will do a complete street patch if it has to be. But in that situation, what you're speaking of, it'll be just a road patch. Yeah. That's Salisbury's policy. That's what they do.
And so, I think that alludes to what Ms. Hovis was saying, is with the development that it's inevitable that the unfortunate thing, when it happens on a road that's bad already, that's actually better because it'll get paved.
It'll get paved
based on our priority system. It's when it's just been paved. That it gets,
that's correct.
That's the problem.
And we speak with our SRU when we plan to pave streets. If they've got any plans for any expansions or any work orders that are coming in for new sewer taps, water taps, to try to head that off before we pave. So we may, if we see that they're like Forestdale is one of the nemesis in town, but they're looking at doing an expansion on Forestdale in the future. Now, how many years that is, I don't know, but I'd hate to go in and pave it and then to dig up a big, 10-foot trench in the middle of the road and then have to pave that again. So we do work with them trying to line that up.
I think the big thing is working with SRU to ensure the quality of the repair patch, because I've seen a few that have been questionable.
And they're contracting most of that now,
right?
Instead of doing it themselves.
Right. But making sure compaction is good, making sure the quality of asphalt, the depth of it is meeting what our standards are, DOT standards.
Right. Usually once they get done, they'll call and I can go out and look at it and then yay or nay on some of them, especially the state roads. State roads have their own rules. if they have to cut a state road.
But the reality is, the longer the thing stays unpaved with gravel on it, and people are driving over it, the better, the more compacted it gets.
Mhm. For sure.
Oh, yeah, can you also address with the easement issue? I know I'd like to get some input from you on that complaint that was made.
On the easement?
Because I know that our staff, we've got an easement agreement in place, it's a
Mhm.
written agreement. And I know that Mr. Taylor, you and your staff have been working to abide by that. But I just, for the sake of the board.
Ms. Hovis sent an email February 6th raising the issue. Peter forwarded it to me. I was out of town. But
And
Peter,
provided it to all the board members as well.
okay,
Good one.
but Peter responded to Ms. Hovis that we were looking into it and that we would respond. On February 8th, I then responded to Joel and Peter and just said, why don't we go ahead at this point in time and get all of our time and material and maintenance records for the visits out there, because there's some information that may be conflicting with regard to how recently we were out there or what's been done. Joel's actually pulled some pictures and sent of what it looked like in 2015, 18, 20, and current. And so I've responded to Ms. Ovis tonight and said that the delay is my fault. I just asked staff to go ahead and pull all the information so we could have a conversation with her with all the information. And that we would be in touch with her within a reasonable time as soon as we collect all the information. And so Joel and I actually spoke about it before the meeting. And so he's just pulling the records for the visits and the material and the man hours for what we've done to see if we feel like we've kept our end of the bargain. So that was it was February 6th last week. February 8th, there was a response. There was an interim response from your manager that was appropriate, and it's now Tuesday night, and we're still just collecting information. So there's no unusual delay in it, but we will respond to her and copy everybody in.
Great. And I would add, excuse me, in general, that the appearance of the facility, which is a natural creek that the town did a project, or a natural stream, the town did a project to stabilize the banks of it to reduce the effects of erosion. It is not a facility intended to retain water. It's not intended to slow down water. And so I'm not an engineer or an expert in how these facilities are designed or work, but it appears that it is being maintained as designed and has consistently been maintained that way. The size of it, looking at GIS photography over the years, appears to have stayed the same. Sometimes we have heard concerns about the size of it. We're still looking. We're going to put all this together though, but just at a high level, it appears like it's in order.
And as a reminder, it was it a year ago that we developed that easement agreement, because that was not in place previously when the project was done. And so the intent of that easement agreement was to lay out the expectations of the town and our staff of what we would do when it came to maintaining that easement. And so, you're going to pull those records.
We'll get everything.
You're documenting every time you go out there with photographs and everything like that to show that we've been out there and done the work. Okay. Thank you all for the update. Anything else for Mr. Taylor?
I would like to acknowledge and express appreciation for Ms. Hovis stated it, but we also received it in an email about you working on Sundays, being very attentive to this issue. We really appreciate your response to that.
You're welcome. It actually turned out to be a different issue, but it was
It's always something.
I guess if you're there anyway,
It's fine. Well, it's fine, no problem.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you
very much.
Thanks, Joe.
All right. Next is our finance report. Ms. Camp.
Good evening again.
Good evening.
So you have my report. Do you have any questions about the finances that you have that was in the report there?
Board? Financial reports before you. Any questions? All right. There are none.
Just want to let you know that our administrative assistant started on January the 22nd. She's fitting in nicely, and she's been to a couple of her meetings here with planning and zoning and HPC and stuff. And we finished out our year with our W-2s and our 1099s, and that's about what we've been up to, and just keeping our bills paid. So
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thanks, sir.
And finally, our library report. And I believe you have that in your packet. Anything you want to add to that?
Well, just certainly appreciate Ms. McCraw's efforts, and she's been able to work with Kyle and Sky on the event you heard about. So appreciate the library being opened up to that, in a sense, a different kind of event than sometimes has happened there, but it actually fits nicely with what it's all about. So encourage folks to continue to look on the library's Facebook page for upcoming activities, but if you haven't been to the library, next Thursday evening would be a great time to go check it out.
All right,
She's also got an excellent speaker in April.
We'll talk about that next month, maybe.
Board, any questions? All right, we will move on then to the town manager report. Mr. Franzese, take it away.
Well, thank you. We a few highlights. We are prepared to host the primary election here on March 5th, and our staff's got a good routine down working with the Board of Elections staff and volunteers, and so we'll be prepared for that, and that'll be a busy week of getting the room unset and reset and probably rearranged again later in the week, and we'll look forward to it. And the other thing I wanted to mention is last year in the fall we did a 1 year or less than 1 year lease, which is something I'm authorized to do for town property with the operators of the local Kona ice truck. They were set up here, and the results of just a couple of months was several $100s donated to the town from the proceeds, and we have we're in the process of executing another lease for this year, where we are considering the park project. In that the place for last year was up at the corner of the parking lot. That'll be the location until construction begins on the park. And then we've identified a spot close to the curb line here in front of the building, and also stated expectations in terms of emergency, if there's an emergency in the building and that sort of thing, and responders need to stage, the Kona ice will need to move, which they understand. But we look forward to that being available here again this year and supporting the town at the same time.
Well, board, any questions on the manager's report?
Where are we with the process for the town park, the bids on that?
The construction documents are still not finalized. We've been in touch with our design team. Actually, we had a call yesterday. The site plans are coming along very well. The building plans are currently where we're needing those to get completed. And the last we heard is it was going to take this whole month. So that's taking longer than we hoped. But of course, the pressure on the timeline was with the hopes of getting the park constructed in between Winterfest. And at this point, everybody's kind of come to an understanding that that's not going to work out this year for the timeline of construction. But the good news is, as many of y'all or all of y'all maybe know, the Winterfest organizers and the committee are already working on a plan B, which has evolved a little bit here and there. But my understanding currently is that the plan is to use the remainder of the parking lot, the remaining property that's not town owned. The owners of that property have offered that up as a location to have the event this year. And I think the other part of the idea is doing it for one weekend for 3 days instead of a 2 weekend event. So there's a lot of details that are still being worked through, but That does take a little bit in terms of the park, a little bit of the pressure off of. Not that we want to delay the project, we want to get done. We're excited, but it'll likely be something that we're working. Still want to get under construction this spring, and hopefully by next spring we'll have a park, and that may work out nicely as well with some of the landscaping elements and the timing of that.
You just don't want to be landscaping in the summer like we had to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, the other question Ms. Hovis brought forth was the restriping project. And I know
Yep.
that's DOT, but
Yes.
what's the timeline on that?
The
Do we
last
have a
date I
timeline?
heard was April.
April.
Yep. So that hasn't. Sometimes that date gets pushed back, but within the last month we asked again, and that was what we had heard was April.
So we probably do need to get a little more definitive confirmation, because one of the things we ought to start doing now is kind of public information campaign, so that folks are aware, especially businesses and everything, of when that's gonna happen. I wanted some input, obviously, from DOT about their process and what that'll look like. Just don't want people to be surprised by it, since it has been a while since we approved it and talked about it.
Yeah.
Any other questions? You want to give a quick reminder about our strategic planning session and community input session?
Certainly. So we're planning to kick that off after the pre-agenda review next month on, I believe that's March 7th, and then we'll have the full day on Friday the 8th. And we are still putting together the details of that, the agenda and that sort of thing, but we envision Thursday evening to be an opportunity, as we've discussed, to have some community feedback, not as intensive as the process as we did last year with an outside consultant, but we'll have an opportunity to get feedback from the community, and then use that going into Friday's planning session. I think another element, there are several elements that I think will plug in nicely to this. One is, I'm looking towards Mr. Blunt, but our Yadkin River District Small Area Plan, part of the thought with the timing of that project was that it could result in a presentation as part of this, with the findings and that sort of thing. So those are the sorts of things we'll delve into. Certainly we'll be looking at some preliminary financial projections, which is that's a bit of a challenge at times to have a full picture in March. It's usually about April before we start having better revenue projections, but we'll be able to have some preliminary information to share and set the table for the budget process.
All right. Board, anything else? All right. We'll start with board comments or requests. So we'll start with Ms. Sledge.
Start down there.
That's not fair to you, is it? Ms. Moody.
Just thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. And I think I'm a little under caffeinated and at a loss for words this evening, so my apologies.
Mr. Howe.
Sure. Two quick things. First of all, you mentioned the primary, regardless of who you're voting for, your preferred candidate or candidates, please vote. It's a civic duty and responsibility, and regardless of, again, where you land on issues, your tally tells the world what we need to be doing. So please do that. I think the second thing is, I know we've had a lot of concern about development. I don't think that pressure is going to diminish, which is a good thing. That's a good problem to have. There are bad problems to have, and there are good problems to have. That's a good one. I understand the concern. I get it. It absolutely makes sense. But at the same time, I think as a town we have a vision, and as a town built on industry and commercial activity, I think we have to be open to it in the right spot. And I think what we did tonight is in the right spot. So there may be a time where it's not the right spot, and we'll address that then. But I just appreciate everyone coming out. I know we heard some folks tonight and last week, and please come out and tell us how you feel about it. But I think this is a good thing.
Thank you. Mayor Perkins.
I just want to also say, of course, as a history teacher, you know I want you to go out and vote. So make your vote count on March the 5th. And we love having people show up here and express their concerns and ask questions. That's a good thing, so please keep doing that. I'm really excited about where we're headed. I love the idea of the labor talks that we're going to have at the library, but we're going to talk about the past, but we're also going to talk about the present and focus on the future. And I like the way that we're headed with getting better paying jobs and opportunities for our citizens.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Muhammad.
First of all, I would like to say thank you to all the residents that attended, via present or virtual. And again, the comments are very important. So please make sure you bring any comments, any complaints, and we will try to address them as best we can to our ability. Thank you for all the hard work that the staff and department heads are doing. I think we're continuing to go in the right direction. Excited about all the, new things that are occurring here in town. Hopefully more residents, more jobs, more willing. And again, March 5th, make sure that you vote. Very important to do such. And with that being said, everybody have a blessed night.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. Ms. Sledge?
I would like to acknowledge too all of our residents and citizens of color for Black History Month. Our history is made up of all the people who came here and who were brought here, and we need to acknowledge the fact that as a white individual, I'm not the only one that counts. Every single person in this country is important, and we're all immigrants unless we're Native American. So again, thank you for the opportunity to work with this group of people. I am pleased that we're making progress. It's hard sometimes to balance where you need to be on the fence because everybody has their side of a story. So I try to look at it from the standpoint of what's best for our community and what's best for our people and find that balance. So thank you all for all the work you do and all the jobs that you do. I'm glad to see us hiring new people, bringing new people on staff, and it's wonderful that we've got applicants stacked up. So amen. We're obviously doing something right here, and you all make that happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sledge. Board, you've said it all, so I'll echo the sentiments of some of our staff. You have my report before you. I'll be happy to take any questions. No, good meeting tonight. Thank you all for all the work you do. Board, thank you for your hard work as well, and it's a pleasure to work alongside each of you. With that, is there a need to go into executive session tonight? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Muhammad, second by Mr. Howe. Mayor Pro Tem is slow to the punch. All in favor? All right, all opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you all.